Hello, reality sandwich community. Kyle, one of your favorite conscious agents, back with another great Share Your Experience, joined by the wonderful Alexa today. Alexa, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. So excited we could take the time to chat. Alexa is a key strategic resource at one of the upcoming, I'd say one of the best psychedelic wellness, events going on this year, Remind. So great to have you on the show here.
Thank you. Really happy to be here.
Obviously, I'm very familiar with you, but for our audience who's just tuning in and meeting you here face to face for the first time, could you talk a little bit about your role with Remind and a little bit about your background working in the emerging psychedelic plant medicine space?
Sure. So I'm fairly new with Remind. I joined the team in August. It's November. So about 3 months in, and I actually attended Remind last year and had a really amazing time. At the time, I was working with Psychedelics Today, handling partnerships, and so I helped to facilitate the partnership with Remind, and it was a really great event from our standpoint at the time. And I think you and I met there, and yeah, it's just a really intimate space. It's in Vegas. There's a lot of really great energy there, and the event is a day before MJ BizCon, so we get a overlap of like cannabis and psychedelics. But a little bit about me, and what's interesting actually about my role with Remind and why I'm so excited is because I actually started in the cannabis space and in 2018. And then transitioned into the psychedelics industry. And I was just actually reflecting on that. I've actually now been working in psychedelics longer than cannabis, which is pretty wild because yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. I felt like I'd really connected with the cannabis space. It's a really important medicine for me. And just like very briefly, I was in a serious car accident in 2016, and that's what really led me to cannabis as a physical healing medicine, but also really helped from PTSD and anxiety. A friend brought me edibles when I was in the hospital, and I had shattered my pelvis, so it was a very serious injury, and cannabis really helped me. And when I left the hospital, I was on disability, and I was still on some pain meds for a couple months, but it really helped me to heal and be more introspective and process a bit. And then when I kind of was feeling ready to get back into the workforce, I just couldn't go back to like the normal grind. Like, I don't know. I just was like, wait, I need to get involved in this space. People don't know about it. Doctors don't know about it. And I just felt really passionate about being an advocate. So yeah, I dove in. I'm in the Bay Area, so very supported by the community here. And yeah, my career has evolved. And actually, I met Joe Moore from Psychedelics Today at a different conference, Discovery Sessions, in the Bay Area. And that's what kickstarted my psychedelic career. I had done a little bit of consulting in the space, but just kind of a note for those who are like, oh, conferences are expensive. Like, they work. There's a reason they that we exist. One connection can like change your career, and it did for me. So yeah, just a little plug on like in person the value of that.
That's really beautiful to hear, and congrats, on your healing journey. Was going to ask, your use of cannabis. What was that conversation like trying to explain this to parents, to doctors, who are trying to put you on pain meds and keep you medicated? And you're like, hey, there's, these edibles are actually helping more than the opioids you're trying to feed me.
Yeah, no, that was a really big aha moment for me. Specifically, like in California, you would think there would be maybe a little bit more lenient, and they are, but yeah, so like I said, a friend had brought me edibles and I took them. My blood pressure dropped like
Oh, wow.
instantly. And so my mom was there with me. She is a consumer. I grew up in a very like open household, so she was supportive of that. But I was new to edibles. I think I took like 5 milligrams, but I'm a pretty low doser. So that was kind of, like I got stoned and I felt really good, like instantly felt relief, but my blood pressure dropped and everyone rushed in. It was like, what's going on? Like, and I was like, okay, wait, I think we should tell you what just happened. And they still were, concerned. They were like, we don't want to know, whatever you need to do, but just don't tell us. And that's not safe, like, I don't think that's a great relationship to have with doctors, especially in such a
Mhm.
serious setting. But basically we kind of were just experimenting. Like I kept taking them. I definitely maybe was doing like half of, that at a time. But I never knew the actual like physiological impacts of cannabis, and it does lower your blood pressure. So just for anyone, I'm concerned about that. But yeah, I've been really lucky. Now I'm, a resource for my family and friends. People definitely, and I'm sure you get that too, being in the space, people definitely come asking about cannabis. Now they're asking about mushrooms. So, yeah, I'm very open about it. I think it's really important. It's definitely, unfortunately, like I have been shamed by, doctors. I just had a baby and I did consume cannabis while I was pregnant. Not a lot. Like I definitely have cut down a lot and my um what's the word? Tolerance has gone down a lot, I've noticed. But it's still been very helpful. It helped with, nausea and which I really struggled with. And I personally feel like there are a lot of benefits for mother and baby. So I feel good about it. And there's a lot of like online community support, but it's hard to you can't really talk to doctors about that, especially when it comes to pregnancy and breastfeeding. So it's a new area of interest for me.
Absolutely wonderful groups out there like Mom on Mushrooms and a lot of these plant medicine folks, opening up and building
Yeah,
that community. Community
totally.
is so important for this industry. Again, we're still underground, even though we're throwing these big festivals and conferences. What is the importance, of your opinion, of hosting conferences like Remind, PsyCon, that psychedelic science, and how are the psychedelic conventions and panels different for you from your experience in the cannabis world? Again, we've seen things like the cannabis cups and the involvement of that industry as well. Now, MJ Biz kind of spinning off their psychedelic conference with Remind.
Yeah. Um, I love events. I've been in the event space for a while, in cannabis and psychedelics. I host events at my space here. I think there's value from like all sizes, from community events to large psych sciences. So I think they're all great. They're all struggling, I will say. The event space is tough. People are, everyone's struggling right now. So it's a really a labor of love, I think, for a lot of us doing it. It's really about bringing the community together. One of the things I felt kind of early on with like cannabis versus psychedelics, I actually felt like cannabis was more inclusive. Um,
Mm.
it it feels like the psychedelic space is a little more competitive, which is ironic. Like it kind of feels like there's more egos in this space, which is funny because, and I think
So
it's
it's to
it's hard to.
dissolve the ego and instead it's being reinforced, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think what's hard too is like I was very much involved in like a local community with cannabis, whereas psychedelics, I think the globally there's like people are bopping around more and there's less people in the space, so it's a smaller group. So it kind of, makes sense that there's a little it feels I don't know, just slightly different. But I mean, there's definitely like so much community on both sides, and I think there's women, at least I found groups that are in both industries that are really supportive of helping other women, and I'm sure they have a lot of the same challenges. I've been out of the cannabis space for a bit, but I think there's also there's a lot of at least a lot more science. There's a lot more substances. You have like cannabis, and then you have a bunch of different substances within the psychedelics bucket. So I've always felt like, why are they so separate? It's so interesting. It's like we don't have a mushroom industry and then like an LSD industry and MDMA industry. It's like I really feel like, and that's again why this role with MJ Biz and Remind is really exciting to me because I think that there's a lot of folks in cannabis who are curious about psychedelics, and I think that cannabis is a great place to start for people who are even curious about microdosing. It's like, okay, have you tried CBD? Like you don't need to necessarily jump into psychedelics. Like cannabis can be so healing, but there's just still so much stigma in both spaces, but they're different stigmas. So yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of overlap and also so much separation. So I'm really hopeful that Remind actually can be a bridge, to what can we learn from cannabis? What can cannabis learn from all psychedelic medicines? Even with like integration and preparation, like there are companies starting to do ceremony work with cannabis, which I think is awesome. Like if you take enough cannabis, like you go places, you go down. I think we just don't really do that as much. So yeah, I think we can learn from each other.
A question I've definitely asked a few guests is cannabis does get left out of the psychedelic conversation and being categorized as part of the psychedelic pharmacopoeia. I'd love your deeper take on that and why you think that is.
I think it is a stigma thing, unfortunately. I think it really does still stem from the war on drugs, and just the stereotypical stoner. Because what's interesting is before I met Joe and got involved at Psychedelics Today, I was feeling a pull to the psychedelic space, and I went on a job interview with a ketamine company that is still a player in the space. And I went through all like the interviews, and I was like, I got this. It was a perfect fit. Got to the final interview, met with the medical director, a doctor. I didn't get the job, and they said it was because of my affiliation with cannabis. They didn't think it was appropriate. And I felt really shamed. I was like, I'm like, I'm a white woman. I've got like a college degree. I have all the experience. I could have done a really great job, I think. And I felt like a kid in college, and they had like looked at my Facebook page, and I was like smoking a joint and got, in trouble. It was that I didn't get the job because I was smoking weed on Instagram, like actually. And I felt really ashamed about it. And I was like, maybe I need like this. I can't get like this. There isn't a career where this can work for me. I have to like hide my true, self or whatever. And then like a couple months later, I met Joe, and he was just so inviting of who I was. And, I'm also an artist, I'm a musician, and like he's a DJ. I think what was really cool about just seeing that there's the medical side of the psychedelic space, and then there's the kind of cultural side, and that's very different. And I'm sure that exists in cannabis, but I think it's a lot more of the culture because I don't know. It feels like it started because of the culture, whereas it feels like the psychedelic space is starting more because of the medicinal side. So it's a little bit, different. Even though, I mean, I will say, obviously, cannabis as medicine since the 80s and the 90s, has helped tons of people. So anyway, that was like interesting learning for me to remember to not sacrifice who I am, that you will always be able to find people who accept you. And yeah, and I mean, I've now, I've switched companies that I'm working with, and I have nothing but love for the PT team. They've been so supportive of me, and they're going to be out in Remind. It'll be great to see them. But Remind's been really amazing and supportive of me. They hired me while I was pregnant. They waited for me to, be ready to come back to work, ready-ish. It's always hard with the new baby to start working, but they're really supportive of like my baby and my husband and my mom are coming out to Remind to help support me while I do my thing. So yeah, I think again, just it's really important for women, for everyone to just like be ourselves and kind of demand what we need. I kind of divulged there, but or diversed off the path, but you know what I'm
Beautifully, beautifully
saying.
put. Glad Remind's going to be a family affair.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I'll get to be there.
With Remind and a few of these other conferences. I'm curious, have you seen the friendly melding of these psychedelic, medical folks versus obviously the cultural side, more of the, that scene of the psychedelic world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of different, archetypes in the space. There's a lot of neuroscientists who are also like to get weird. I think most of the people in the psychedelic space like to partake. So yeah, I think that it's great to get all these people and bodies in a room. I think I often am surprised when we see people on LinkedIn and kind of have our assumptions, and then you get in a one-on-one, and you have these investors who have families and love, doing mushrooms. And, it's just, there's a reason we're all here. I think that is pretty clear and as you talk to people all the time, we all have our like personal stories and journeys. And so, yeah, I think it's just important to remember that like there's a reason we all were brought to this work. It's still so early, to be doing it. I had a thought yesterday of like, wow, like what's it going to be like in 10 years, which is like not that far away, but we're all still in it. We're going to be still in it. And just really learning a lot. And yeah, I hope that we'll just keep inviting more people from the outside to be, I think what's beautiful about psychedelics is that it helps you kind of see your authentic self and remember, who we really are. So I think it's important. The more people that have the medicine, the better.
Beautifully put. You mentioned, with your cannabis use, you'd grown up in an open household. What was your first exposure to psychedelics, and what was that first experience?
So psychedelics really it wasn't
Was,
until I was in
was it
college.
mushrooms, or what was the?
Yeah, it was. So like I said, yeah, cannabis I was a fan of for a while. And then in college, a friend, a couple of friends were like, we're gonna go to the park and do mushrooms. And I went to school in Pennsylvania and we drove somewhere to like a beautiful lake with a, park. And it was me and my best friend and two other friends. And we did mushrooms, and one of the guys we were with had a bad trip. And it was interesting because it was like the first time I had ever done this. Me and my girlfriend were blissed out. We were just staring at the trees and the clouds, and I was like, oh my god, the trees can breathe. Like, what? Trees are alive. Like, I have literally never seen trees the same. I mean, they are now like always breathing to me, as you know. But my friend, he was not in a good place. He literally sat in Indian style. I couldn't say that. He was sitting with cross-legged and was just like kind of muttering to himself and would like break out in tears. And he was just like in it, and there was nothing we could do. And we kind of just like we were there for him, but I never really found out what he was going through. But it was interesting to see. I don't know what that was about, but me and my friend were just like frolicking around and having a blast. And I kind of like, throughout my 20s, I then tried MDMA at a show, which blew my mind completely and opened my heart completely. So it was recreational before it was medicinal.
Hmm.
And later on, like with my husband, we've, done psychedelics at festival settings, but more intentionally. We always kind of have a little ceremony, and there's that kind of like hybrid recreational medicinal usage. And then I've also now have done a couple of more intentional like ceremony clinic experiences. So yeah, I've just kind of gradually gone deeper and explored different ways of going.
Well put and wonderful to hear. Again, set and setting is key importance, and I think having ritual with these, they are medicines, and even go and taking some MDMA and going to the concert is a medicinal experience, and
Yeah,
opening you up.
definitely.
So curious, we had discussed previously to this interview, you wanted to share about your ketamine experience. So I'd love to hear a little bit about pre going into your first time you decided to try ketamine, and what was the profound experience that you had.
Yeah. So interestingly, like as I just said, I've had experience with a lot of different substances. I had never tried ketamine, and being in the space that I'm in, I was very curious about it. And last year I sought out therapy, and I initially did worked with one of the telehealth providers,
Hmm.
and I did two at home sessions, but I really didn't like it. There's a couple of reasons, but mostly I didn't. The first session was pretty good. Basically, they like send you more higher dose of lozenges as you go, and the second session I had a really bad experience. I was extremely anxious, felt very trapped. And in retrospect, I'm wondering if it was part of what I needed to go through. However, without having a professional there, it was really, really challenging. And I think I want to start off with that because I think what's for people who have not tried anything and are curious about ketamine therapy, I would just not recommend telehealth ketamine therapy as your first go to. And unfortunately, it's the most accessible. And I think just like I want a PSA to this movement of like, if somebody tries this and had my experience, they would never try psychedelics again, and they would think all the rumors are true. Like I just think it's kind of irresponsible. So, and again, I was kind of going in with like trying to be critical, I guess, of like what's going on in the space. What are people experiencing? They also sent me the wrong dosage. They sent me too much, and they were like, "Wait, don't take that much." Actually, so like it was just like all the things that could have kind of gone wrong went wrong. But I will say my first session was beautiful, and so I was definitely still like, okay, I want to work with this medicine. And then I got connected to a clinic down Soft Reboot Wellness down in Menlo Park. Dr. Sarah, she is incredible, and so I did 4 sessions once per week for a month with her. And it was extremely profound. What was interesting was it was May of last year, 23. Uh, each session was very different, similar in that the dose increases with each week. The first 2 sessions, after the first 2 sessions, then you switch to one of the like vibro acoustic chairs. So just kind of setting the stage for the progression. And what those are, they vibrate with the music you're listening to.
Hmm.
So I got to give a shout to Wave Paths, who's like the musical component, which is so important. And again, like
Mhm.
as an artist, what was really fascinating for me with pretty much all of these, like the 6 sessions that I did, the 2 telehealth and the 4 in clinic, were how strong my like inner artist was coming out. Partially because I think the music was so impactful. It made me realize like how powerful music is as a medicine. And that's like my true calling, is music. But I've never really been giving it like, it's just like a side love of mine that like I put out music, every now and then, but it could be like months and months, between when I'm working on stuff. But yeah, through my ketamine journey, like it was very loud and clear that music, it needs to be a part of my life and a part of my healing. And that was something I wasn't expecting. It just came a lot, but like very specifically, like it'd be like this song, like you need to work on this song next. And it was like, oh, like, okay. There was a lot of downloads that were very clear and vivid. But was also very interesting was how different each session was in terms of like what came through. Um,
Was it
and
the
there was
same
a
dosage each section, or was it incrementally increasing each
they
time?
went up yeah, each time. And I don't because so that was in the clinic, it was through an IV. I really loved the experience, the like physical feeling, of it. It felt very good. I've never, like I said, I've never done a dissociative, so it's interesting to explain. But like in one session, I I had taken the headphone off of one ear, and it felt like the ear that was like connected to the music. I it's hard to explain, but it was like I was in 2 different places. Like I literally felt like half of me was like in outer space. Like I felt like because that was the 3rd session, it must have been because the chair was vibrating, and I remember feeling like a planet. Like I felt so grounded, like this huge vibrational energy. And and there was definitely probably some like more sound bathy type music, so like deep earthy, sounds. And then I was like in the room with Dr. Sarah, and I was like, this is crazy. Like I'm in 2 places at once, and I really felt this like, like we are these spiritual beings, like, and I really felt that. Yeah, it was like there was just this like plane down the middle of me, and it was really cool. And it was very grounding. That was like one standout kind of moment. What was really the most powerful and surprising. So I've been in psychotherapy for like a decade with the same therapist. I originally started working with him due to a loss that I experienced I was actually 10 years ago. It was 2024. Um, and so I've been working with him. Like I've, done a lot of therapy. And I literally called him like the next week because I had a memory come up in my 4th session, which was really like my 6th. So it took like
Mhm.
weeks and weeks of, digging. This memory came up. I had never talked to my therapist about it. I had never told him. It was a completely suppressed traumatic childhood incident that's what really blew my mind. And I think in that moment I was like, there is really something to this medicine, because if 10 years of therapy, like, they say like one
Mhm.
psychedelic session is like a year of therapy or whatever. I'm like, for me, it was like more than 10 because it unearthed something. And it's funny because I don't know if I've even integrated it yet. And that was like over a year ago. It's something that it comes up and it doesn't, but it's definitely present. It At the time when I was working with, Sarah, they do an integration session. And that's kind of another PSA. It's like, they might, if you do ketamine, they might do 1 or 2 integration sessions and then you're on your own. And like some of this stuff is like really big. And I would just encourage you to, whether it's a support group or, it could be online or a therapist, but like I was really lucky that I had my therapist to continue working on this stuff with. But a lot of like parts work came up. I don't, know how familiar you are with that, but that was really interesting too. There's a couple of different parts of me that I like or was able to identify through the work with ketamine, which I had never really, placed before. Um, so yeah, but I think the biggest thing was just this memory that, I ended up calling my mom after and being like, do you remember this? Like, I remember this. This was a thing. This happened. I like talked about it with you. And but I had completely forgotten. And you know, whether or not we don't need to get into it necessarily, like I'd be happy to talk about it, but I think it just made me realize like how many people are walking around with these traumatic experiences buried, like somewhere so freaking deep, and it impacts who we are and how we respond and what's it doing like sitting in there. And I know that can happen with other psychedelics too. But yeah, I thought I loved it. I would love to do more ketamine therapy. It was so like what was interesting, it was like very in some ways very light because it had a lot of like artistic inspirational components, and then it also was like really heavy and got really deep. And there was also, now I'm remembering, the third session, I think, or the second, I it was before I got pregnant, and I had been questioning like, do I want to be a mom? Why do I keep delaying, wanting to have kids, and kind of just like questioning the status quo. And I had some downloads that was like, you can do it, you can be a mom, you can be a musician. Like it was very much like a validation of like being a mom doesn't have to mean you're giving up, because I think I had a lot of fears about like losing my independence, and which is like valid because it's a lot to birth a human and take care of them. But I ended up getting pregnant very soon after that, and I think that was part of a lot of other work that I was doing. But the ketamine period was, I was definitely doing some work in there, and it helped me just to get through. I think some of the outside things that were influencing my decision, and really helped me to just kind of drop in and connect. So I would say with like grounding was like really, really, really grounding
Very
overall.
divine timing, you know.
Yeah.
Few different things to touch on there. I think music, obviously, it's one of your passions. Music plays a huge role when people work with ayahuasca and some of these more traditional medicines. What has that download been like for you, and how have you integrated music as part of your healing and integration process? And would just love your thoughts on the importance of music in the whole psychedelic ecosystem.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. Because I have participated in more like classic type ceremony, and the music is so powerful. Um, I have gotten back into music. I think it changed my relationship. I think I previously, for my own personal relationship with my music, it had felt like a lot of pressure. Like I need to be a musician, like I have to get music out. And I think going through that series of journeys, it really just made me realize like it's part of who I am. I'm going to be a musician for my whole entire life. And I'm just like creating as my medicine, and not like really trying to let go of how many people are going to hear this, how many streams is it going to get. Like, yeah, that's like kind of important, and I have goals, but it's not the most important thing. It took a lot of pressure off me. And what's really beautiful is I've been playing and singing to my baby like more than I've ever played music ever. Like I play music for her, and she loves it, and it's so cute. And I actually performed like 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks ago at a psychedelic cabaret that was hosted by Marisa Sturt's, a member of our community, and it was an incredible event, a variety show, maybe like 20 artists. And so I'm slowly starting to like reemerge and kind of see where my music fits. But I think, yeah, on a personal level, really just trying to take pressure off of it needing to like be or do anything and just create. I have like literally hundreds of songs that I've written, and it's just kind of like one at a time. I'm going to figure out how to get them out of my body and into the world, so other people can enjoy it. I released a music video actually this year, which we recorded a while ago. And I also recorded a song when I was pregnant, and that song we're working on. So it's very slow though. I've realized like it's just a process, and trying not to rush it and like put timelines on it. In terms of like overall, I mean, I think music is such an important part of ceremony. I mean, even my husband and I, for 9 months, worked on a playlist, like a birth playlist, like that. And it's an amazing playlist. Like, I love it. I think like having intention, with any sort of creation, with any sort of ceremony, music is a really great way to create like a flow, you know? So I think for journeys, it's incredible because it really does help to bring you up and bring you back down when sometimes like our bodies and minds left at our own devices, they can just spiral. And it's like, it really is this anchor. Music can really be an anchor. And it's beautiful because I was talking before about this like split between like reality and this like other place. And I feel like music kind of exists but it exists in both places because there is like obviously an ethereal part to music, but there's also the actual material of like the voice and the instruments being like real, tangible things. And I think that's what is so beautiful about the music. It like brings you in and out of the body and into this like other place, but it also inspires like visuals. And so it really is just this like it creates a container for the journey to live in. And but it's like not it's fluid. And yeah, I'm very uh yeah, I'm just excited to see where my musical journey evolves to. I would love to apply to perform in deep space at psych science is something I've been thinking of. I don't know, did you go to deep space last year at psych science? Were you
Mm-mm.
at psych sciences last year?
No, I didn't know. I wasn't
Oh,
able
two.
to
Oh,
attend. Yeah.
well, you should go if you can. It's incredible, and there's this incredible immersive space called Deep Space that had art and tea, and it's very much like the cultural side of psychedelics, which I think is one of the things they did really beautifully. And I think yeah, like what I love about this space is, like I kind of said, it really allows people to bring their gifts and share their gifts and be themselves and heal together. So yeah, that's my take on music.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wanted to, follow up question. Could you dive a little bit more and tell our audience what is parts work and what exactly, goes into that? Again, we're all walking around needing to be healed. We've got trauma, hang-ups. You're right. This medicine needs to be unlocked for everyone. So
Yeah.
curious, what your advice would be. Somebody, what is that? How can somebody tap in, and what is that? What is that process looking like?
Yeah, so I'm no therapist, so I don't know like the clinical, history or origins and whatnot. What my understanding is, so IFS is internal family systems, which is I guess, like theory that, as children, we have like the inner child that is just like our child spirit. But as we get older, could be from traumatic experiences, like our psyche creates these different like parts of us to protect us. So um, for example, one of my parts I've just discovered, which is like it's things you like know about yourself, but then you're like when you identify the part. So for example, like I am a perfectionist, and I notice like, oh, there's like that's a part of me. This like the part of me that always wants things to be perfect and like loves organization and like planning and like not a ton of spontaneity. Like um so it's like I've always known that about myself, but when I identified like, oh, there's an actual like part of me that was created and for a specific reason, it's really interesting because you kind of realize that you don't have to let it like dictate everything. When you identify that it's not who you are, it is a part of who you are. And another one of my parts is like an artist, which is it's more like creative and fun loving, and that is my more spontaneous whatever part of me. But I think it's really it can be helpful when you're trying to understand your different behaviors and reactions, and it's a way to be more gentle, and I think just self analyze like why are you reacting a certain way. It's to protect you, and it helps to, I think, be less critical, and also to be like, what does this part actually need to feel better, or um so yeah, that's kind of high level. It's been a while since I did the work, but and it's funny, I actually was like looking through my ketamine journal prior to this, and that's what reminded me that I was like, oh my God, I forgot I had like done all this parts work. Um, to your point about like integration, it's amazing how um time can just go on. And so I think it's such a huge part of not just psychedelic work. I mean, just like any sort of experience we're going through, like learning how to integrate it so that there's like lasting beneficial effects is really important.
I recently had my first, let's call it ceremonial San Pedro experience, and one of my takeaways is these psychedelics are not a magic pill that's going to heal you and all your trauma overnight. You need to do the work. You need to do the integration afterwards. So, what is your advice to somebody looking to integrate? How do you coach somebody into the integration process? You mentioned journaling. What other techniques do you find to be helpful?
Yeah, writing is a huge one. I mean, talking if you have like a close friend or partner is great. I really love this is like personally like tarot, or some sort of like card practice. Kind of being open to like receiving messages, but it could also just be like journal prompts, but like asking a question, kind of trying to get some information. I think even like body work is really, finding ways to clear your mind most of all, like to stop, not overthink it too much and just kind of like really see what comes through. Obviously music, dancing. But I think ultimately what all of those things have in common is like giving, letting the thoughts, like trying not to control your thoughts too much and like seeing what comes. Cause I think at least for me, integration is kind of like making sense of what just happened. And so like sometimes you'll just get like an insight that comes through and it's like, oh my God, how did I never realize? Like it's like these things just kind of click, but it can take years to really integrate an experience. I mean, one thing that came up in my ketamine journey and I forgot it after when I was like reading my notes was I mentioned this car accident that I was in, and I was like, I don't know that I think I actually integrated my car accident, my ketamine journey 7 years after it had happened. I don't know that I'd ever truly integrated. I was in such a trauma place and like coming home, it was just all like very traumatic. And I don't know that I ever gave space, or even if I did, like sometimes we need to like reintegrate, like reprocess, like the impacts that these events have on us can be really big. And I think just constant work. I've realized it's never over, it's psychedelic therapy is incredible. And there's also other therapies that, they all can work together.
Beautifully put. What's been inspiring you lately? What's it like being a new mother, and how has that impacted your medicine use or inspired you, with the work that you do?
I love being a mom. It's actually like blowing my mind. Like I said, I was unsure about if I wanted to be a mom, and it's feels very natural for me, which feels really good. It was one of the fears that I also had was like, what if I resent this child? And I'm like, and I know women experience that. It's a lot. There's a ton of release and surrender. I had been planning a home birth for my whole pregnancy and ended up with a C-section, and in the hospital for 4 days, and it was not what I wanted. And there was a lot of surrender there and healing from trauma. It was really hard. Um, but one of the most beautiful parts, I think, because with my birth being the way that it was, I was feeling like I didn't birth her at first. I felt like inadequate. I was like, I didn't birth my baby. Like they had to take her out of me. Like it was really hard. And through therapy, I came to this realization that like, no, like this spiritual being like came through me and was born. And it was just really understanding like what does birth mean and what is birth and rebirth. And she's 6 months. I'm still figuring a lot out. It's really hard in our society to be a working mother. Breastfeeding is extremely challenging. Like nobody, I think we take that for granted that like women just do that. It's insane. Like it's a lot. And I think in terms of like career, I'm feeling just more feminist than ever, like really wanting to fight for women and our future and my daughter's future. And I think this medicine has a lot of power for our collective futures, for our planet, for mental health. Just I just feel like it's very affirming that I'm on my path. especially with just how supportive. I have a lot of moms that working with me at Remind and MJ Biz, like run by moms. It's actually like quite incredible. So there's just a lot of support there. But it's work. It's wild. I don't. Some days I don't have any time to just like do what I need to do. It's all about her, and you just call your mom if you can. Tell her you love her because man, it's a lot. But no, it's great. And yeah, thanks for asking.
Of course, thank you for sharing. Where can people listen to your music? Where can people follow you? What is exciting about Remind this year versus last? And could you share the details on the upcoming event?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's alexajessie.com. Has like links to my music. I'm on Spotify too, and I just released a music video. It's on YouTube. It's called Hourglass. So check that out. Would love to hear feedback. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited. Remind, we're going through transition. This year is 1 day. It's been 2 days in the past. It's going to be 2 days again next year. We already have the dates for 2025. So like once this year ends, we're in full planning mode already, which is pretty wild. But yeah, I'm really excited just to gather with the community. It's the first time I'll kind of really be out of and about after like my, baby hiatus. Um, we've got some really great people who are attending, some great, exhibitors. It's a pretty intimate event. So like 250 people, one main stage. There's not a ton of like competing stuff happening. So it's like kind of low stress. I know some events are great because there's so much to do, so much to see, but it can be a lot to like be running around. And so I think that's nice about, Remind. It's pretty intimate. And there's like lunches served, so you don't have to go anywhere. And then there'll be a networking event. There's an after party, so it's kind of like a full day and night of fun in Vegas. And then I'm really excited. I mean, I'm staying for MJ BizCon, which I've never attended before. That's the following 3 days, so it's a really amazing reunion of my cannabis folks as well. And I'm just excited to like meet new people. I mean, I met so many people there last year, and just to see what opportunities come, I think it's really cool to see like to introduce people and see other people connecting, and then like them making business magic together. I've seen people start podcasts together, or people like create new products together just from meeting at events. So yeah, really excited to see just the magic that emerges. And yeah, we've got less than 2 weeks. And so we're just in crunch time right now, but I'm excited to get down there.
Excellent. Remind is on December 3rd.
Correct. Tuesday, December 3rd. Yep.
Okay. Can't wait to be there. Can't wait to see all the friendly faces that I'm familiar with. And thank you so much for sharing today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.